So this topic is called the bottom line. And so for every business, there's a back end and a front end. So the front end, you see the operations, the beautiful jobs. There's a giant back end behind that that makes it happen. And oftentimes you'll see companies that do beautiful work and the administration's a disaster. And so it's kind of like, you know, beautiful, but you've got cirrhosis of the liver, you've got, you know, enlarged kidneys, there's a lot of things going on. And so you want to be clean on the outside and the inside, and then you have a harmonious business. So one of the things that you probably noticed was that George has an amazing team, and he's got people that offset his strengths and weaknesses. Not that George can't do any of those things, but he doesn't like doing those things. So he's got people that like doing certain things that he doesn't like doing, and that's how you build a team. It's about aligning talents and passions. And in this room, there's a whole bunch of you. Some of you are conceptual thinkers, so you're high conceptual. Some of you are high analytical. Generally uncommon, represent about 10% of the population. There's procedural people who love to create and follow procedure, and there are storytellers. And you're not all one or the other. And so the trick is, when you're building a team, is to figure out how to get this blend. For the smaller businesses, there's usually not enough of you to fill all of those quadrants, because you can't be everything. It's very difficult. And so when I'm looking at systems and how I operate a business, I've got to take these things into consideration, because I want to create as little friction as possible so that things run smoothly. The least effort with the highest return. So you've all heard of Elon Musk, and there's a concept called first principles, which is derived from Aristotle. And essentially it's about not making mistakes and finding out what's possible. So a great question would be, can we go to Mars today? Could we put people on Mars, yes or no? Yes, no, we have no, yes, okay. The answer is we can't afford it, right? So if I want to go to Mars, I got to figure out how to cut costs. So I'm going to figure out how to make sure we don't throw the rockets away and we land them back again. $80 million a shot, right? So I've just taken away one barrier from us getting to Mars. So I've got to get efficient. And efficiency is huge. So when I look at businesses, and I teach business and I analyze your business, I look at it from this perspective. Leadership, number one. That is the number one key factor that is going to determine whether your business is successful. It's leadership. Then comes technology. So technology is the nervous system of the business. It's how we communicate information. And so if I have a leader and I don't communicate well, we've got a problem. So we focus very, very hard on making sure the communication processes are super simple. Some of you have more complicated solutions. Some of you have simpler solutions. There's economics, which is money, insurance, law, postal. That's it. That's what economics is. So there's a financial piece to this. There's a risk. It really is about risk. There's sales and marketing, which is the engine of your business, generally sales. In George's situation, he spends nothing in marketing because he just does a good job, and that is his marketing. Imagine that. His trucks are branded the same way. Do a good job, put a sign out, have some signs in your truck, repeat, rinse and repeat. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Like, my marketing is my last job. I think George iterated that, which is kind of cool. We have HR, human resources. Well, so far, everybody I met at Koivik is impressive. And, you know, I kept hearing the same thing. We want to make it easy for our people to work. We don't want to beat them down. So we're going to give them all these tools, the spider crane, whatever else it is. So they're looking at people differently than most of us. They want to leverage the people. They want to empower the people, not suck the life out of them. That is antithetical to how most people think. So I think there's a special magic there that maybe is underappreciated that I felt myself today there. On the operations side, it's like, what can we do to empower you from an operations perspective? Whether it was equipment or the way the shop was set up, or even the interoperability of the people bouncing around. So there's no, we can't do this. It's like, how can I do it? Who's going to do it? How do we step in? That was the takeaway I got, at least from my little work zone that I was covering. And at the end of the day, if you do this right, you've got a great business. And the truth of the matter is there's only 4 things that go wrong in business. That's it. I've taken first principles and I've condensed it down to this. The first one is aimlessness. What's my direction? Where am I going? How am I bringing these people together to do it, right? And that's called leadership. And so some of us are all over the place. We don't have a focus. You'll see George is very focused in his role, in what he does. He does it very well, and he gets everybody else to do everything else. Like, as important as his role is, as I would say, the conductor of the orchestra, I would argue multiple orchestras at the same time, he's got all the people that are playing the instruments, and they're willing to play louder and softer as required. That's amazing. So his business is so much more different than most of the 100 or so businesses that I've advised. And it's unique, and there's some amazing takeaways. It's also a talent and a passion aligned with a system that works around George's philosophy. So super cool. So there's some great leadership at Koivik. There's also Rob, who does the back end that maybe you don't see all the glory, but that's the keel in the ship. He might be the captain, and the other person's the keel that keeps the boat from flipping over. So it's a great relationship. The second type of thing that you shouldn't do is what I call a dead end. What shouldn't we do? Who do we not work for? Where do we not work? What type of equipment don't we buy, right? What do we not do? What should we? I don't smoke, I don't drink. We're already halfway there. I think somebody I saw, I won't name them out, but they were having, what are those energy drinks called? The Red Bull, great commercials. Probably not good for you, high energy. And so what are things that we shouldn't do? Sorry for singling you out. I didn't name you, so. And then there are gaps, okay? So what's missing? So these lines represent that. Gaps, what's missing? Is it a person? Is it technology? Is it a machine? Well, clearly George has got the machine gap filled, right? Maybe on the technology side, moving to electronic timekeeping would be something that he would consider in the future. He's so busy that doing what he's doing well that he's not worried about that. So I have a line, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think George would subscribe to that. We got a system that works. It's old school. Why do I need to do that if it's working? So leave it alone. There's other fish to fry. Maybe we'll circle back to that later. Then we have loops. Loops are things that we do over and over again, and I'll go back to the timesheets. So we did switch to electronic timekeeping, and so it is a lot easier to collect the data correctly and not have coffee spilled or the timesheet not handed in to make payroll. Having said that, let's say George's culture is so good and they're so awesome on the procedure that no one never hands in their timesheets. That may not be the case in your business. So he doesn't need the technology to solve that problem. We heard about GPS. They used to use GPS. They don't do GPS. His people aren't at Tim Hortons getting coffee. Why does he need GPS to confirm something he already knows? He's got great culture. So that's called overproduction. And so there's these 4 types of waste, and then there's 2 mindsets. Cheap, or frugal is a nicer word for that, or excessive. And so you see people blowing money like no tomorrow on things that they don't need. So I make a distinction between needs and wants, right? And I want to make sure that we really understand what those needs are. So there's a lot of things we need. There's a lot of things we want. What do we really need? And then we want to prioritize that. So a lot of businesses take that crazy line, which represents inefficiency, and then they try and scale it. So you're scaling chaos. How many people here want to grow? Okay. How many people here want to get better? Let's switch get better and then grow after. So we're not ready to grow. I don't allow people to grow until you get your stuff together, right? And so we can talk about that a little bit. So on the right-hand side, you'll see this green representation. Do you want to have the left side or the right side? Who's voting for the left side? Red. Nobody. How about the right side? Okay. So when I fix businesses, I like to optimize them first. Then we can grow. And growing, as George would say, the bottom line is more important than the top line. Who cares how big you are if you're not profitable? Right? It means nothing. You might have a big ego, look how big my business is, but I'm selling a disaster. So when we do mergers and acquisitions and we bring companies together to buy your business, we're looking at a lot of different things to see whether this business, am I nice outside, beautiful, what's on the inside? Oh boy, ugly culture, ugly processes, waste everywhere. So you can have a nice boutique business, 1 or 2 crews, tight, awesome, profitable, fine, or you can build an empire. To build an empire, the best way to do it is to get a nice green, clean line and then scale when you're ready. And there's ways to do that. So we bought a business a couple of years ago at Oriel. We will continue to buy businesses. That's a really good way to scale. We're looking for cultural fit. The story George was telling you about the deal, I don't know who that was. I'd be interested to find out. But that deal didn't go through because it wasn't a culture fit. And thank God, because that's a nightmare. So if the business doesn't align with how George thinks and runs the business as a leader, it's like trying to mix, let's say, squirrels and turtles. It would be a bad outcome, okay? So, financial waste. So I look for waste everywhere I go. So George mentioned that his yard is not optimized. I was in your repair shop and somebody said, well, why isn't there a drive-through? Well, George gave the answer to that because the plan evolved and he didn't have the giant property that he could plan before he built it, right? It's still amazing. It's not perfect, and it's okay. It's still going to make him money. It might lose him, I don't know, $2,000 a year or something like that for the odd time that he can't drive through that building. It's okay. He's going to work with what he has, and to redesign that whole business would cost a couple of $1 million. The ROI is very poor. So there's different types of waste, defects. So in accounting, that would be crappy entries. I don't know where things are. If I look at people's P&Ls, and I do all the time, they're abject disasters. Like, I think I've seen one in 1,000 where I'm like, that's an impressive chart of accounts. That's how bad it is. So we don't know what's going on. We don't know where the money's going. We can't use it for analysis. There's waiting for information. I can't make financial decisions because I don't know my numbers. That's a problem. Non-utilized talent. So I'm trying to do everything myself. Like, hire someone who's better than you to do it, even if it costs you more. It's worth it. You'll move ahead faster. And then overspending is the worst type of thing that I see, where people are burning money like no tomorrow on things that they do not need, they want, or maybe they need it, but it's actually the 5th thing that they need and they can't afford it. So this is a representation, a physical representation of your financials. It's just it doesn't look like that to you. That's what I see when I open people's books up. And it's a post-mortem on what happened. So, super simple financials. I won't ask the question of how many people intimately understand their financials, because most people don't. So part of this is a bit of education on understanding financials. We have sales, synonym, revenue. How much money's coming in? We have money going out. Money going out is essentially labor, equipment, materials, and subcontractors if you're doing a multiple overhead recovery system. In other words, I take the equipment out of overhead and I shove a lot of it up into cost of goods sold. So that's what the customer sees. They're paying for what they see. So sales minus cost of goods sold equals a gross profit. That tells me how efficiently I'm operating. The higher the gross profit, the more efficient you are. Super simple, okay? Then we have overhead expenses. So overhead expenses are all the things that the customer doesn't see that you actually need to make your business work on the back end, right? What you don't see. And the customer's got to pay for that. And a lot of people do not price their jobs properly because they're not recovering the overhead properly. So that's a big issue. And so after that, you have EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. The banks love that number. So you can use, if I have clients in the US that want to do funny manipulations to manipulate taxes and lower their profits and all this stuff. So you buy some equipment, you depreciate it, and all of a sudden your profits look lower. How's the business actually doing? So if we take out the depreciation and the amortization, and if we take out the interest and the taxes, we can actually see how the business is doing. And then I can see what the interest costs are for the growth of the business. How much money you're burning on interest. Now, I love George. And the reason I love George is because he doesn't like debt. George likes to pay cash. George's business is safe. It's bulletproof. By the way, he negotiates better deals for himself with that cash. So debt isn't necessarily always the way to go. You can get yourself into a lot of trouble with debt. So we have a net operating profit, EBIT, and essentially that's how efficiently we're running our business. We've got non-operating revenue. So this is a great one. Interest. I have companies that take their free cash flow that are, say, doing $10 million a year, and they make 5% interest on their free cash flow. So what's free cash flow? It's your deposits, it's the time between your payables and your receivables, and it's running your bank balance at zero. So you want to be at $1 on your checking at all time. If you took all that money and you bought bonds with it and you added it up over the year, it's a lot of money. That's money you're earning without actually having to work for it. That's money management. Most people don't do that, and if you have a tight business, you can make money off of other people's money. It's called a bank. So we want to make money there. There's gain or loss on sale of asset. Now, in our equipment or operations session in that repair shop, I was talking about this. George isn't just a landscaping company. He's actually an equipment dealer. So he's buying and selling assets. So when he buys the asset, he figures out, when can I use this thing? Or how can I use this thing so my depreciation is as low as possible, I don't hit repairs, then I sell it, and then some other sucker gets the problems, and I get a premium for the equipment. That's what George is doing. And that's why he can afford new equipment, because he's a reseller of equipment. You just don't know that. And it's a conscious choice to have no repairs, no downtime, low depreciation, happy employees with very efficient equipment, and he makes money on that. It shows up below his operating profit. It's important. Then there's extraordinary income. So what's that? Well, I look at financials and I see funny numbers sometimes. One of them I saw was a guy's barn burnt down. Now I don't know if that was purposeful, like the insurance check, you know what I'm saying? We've seen the mulch fire. That's another one. George might have that one, some older equipment, little mulch fire. And you collect a nice insurance check. So I'll see where that happened and what happened, and then I'll figure out whether it was an act of God or some criminal act. And then there is portfolio income. So perhaps George is taking some of his profits and he's buying Tesla stock or maybe GM stock now that they've got awesome vehicles and the price is going to go up. And there's non-operating expenses, income tax, other miscellaneous expenses, and then non-deductible penalties. So when you're getting fines and things like that and you can't write it off, that's where that goes. So hopefully there's none of that. And then at the end of the day, there's your take-home pay after you pay Revenue Canada, your corporate tax. Those are financials. There are different ways to set up your financials. There's MORS, there's SOARS, single overhead recovery. There's a broker model. I think there's a couple of people here that are brokering work. There's a professional model where you actually don't have any cost of goods sold. It's just overhead. And so those are essentially the different ways to set up financials. So the next part I'm going to show you, you cannot take pictures and you cannot videotape it because it's IP. And I love efficiency, and I like to see what I'm working on. So oftentimes you'll see financial dashboards and all these things, and I just can't make the connection to where the hell that came from. So watch this. So here's an example of a P&L that we set up for all of the companies that we work with, and this is what it looks like. Every number, every category is clean, it's organized, it's visible. I can tell the difference between the actual and the projected. If the number's off my range, my benchmark, it will turn red. And then we get into the 5 pillars of business, super organized, right? Zip through this. I separate travel and meals because the government likes that. Amortization, depreciation, boom, clean, organized. Imagine if your books were like this. Now, QuickBooks is evil. You can enter entries into the category names. So the way we get around that is we use capital letters when we create category names. And everybody I talk to, if it ever has a capital in it, you're not allowed to enter into it. Simple rule. So then you don't end up with messed up books. The analogy is in your home, if I said, you put your car keys and you had a specific spot to put them, and instead you, threw it in the dresser drawer in the guest bedroom, you'll never find it. And that's what most people's books are like. So where's the money? What's going on with the money? How is this helping me? How is this hurting me? Where am I wasting money? What type of waste am I wasting in my financials? So clean financials are the absolute necessity to building a business that is turnkey, scalable, and will be worth more money. So the back end is clean, right? Your balance sheet. Nobody looks at the balance sheet. And I don't even want to ask how many people have looked at their balance sheet recently, but the balance sheet tells a very interesting story. It tells me how rich you are. The income statement tells me how much money you make. And goodwill is the intangible that improves your balance sheet. So when I look at goodwill, so if I went to George's Yard, I'd say, wow, nice inventory, check the box. Impressive experience for the clients, check the box. Cool lounge area, checks the box. Culture, check the box, right? In George's case, I'd say, I wish he had some electronic timekeeping, right? Little dink in terms of my score for George's goodwill, okay? And I'd look at his equipment, I'm like, whew, nice, right? George is doing very well in the goodwill. George's brand, phenomenal. Does George market? No. His work is his marketing. Brand value just went up, right? Management structure, landscape architects, dialed in. George's goodwill is very high. That business will sell for a premium. Oh, and it's profitable. So there's a lot of factors that go into the goodwill. And that's what the value of your business is. So at the end of the day, if you're in a business, you're in the business of building goodwill. Oh, and George makes money on selling his equipment as well, which is going to help his retained earnings. He has a ratio that he cycles back into his business to reinvest in a business at a prescribed way and a prescribed rate. Everything's planned at George's business. We like George's business. We'd like to buy George's business. George's business is going to command a premium. Hey? Yeah, everything's for sale. Oh, that hurt. Okay. So essentially we have assets and liabilities. Depreciation shows up on the asset side as a negative to the asset to reduce the value every single year. Balance sheet is typically only updated once or twice a year, and most people's balance sheets are ugly. So ugly financials. Who doesn't want to have ugly financials? Okay. How much would you be willing to spend to clean up your financials? Nothing. Okay, well, you're in the same boat. Congratulations. My point is that this is the foundation of your business and understanding what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it and what moves I'm going to make. Revenue, steady revenue. If your revenues are volatile, your business is worth way less. So in our business, we don't do snow, so we'll buy a house, renovate it, flip it, and that's our flat revenue for the winter, right? But we have to have a strong balance sheet and the cash position or the leverage to be able to do that. So building your balance sheet gives you opportunity. It also makes you safer and more bulletproof if there's a recession, right? So you can leverage yourself into growth, and if you're lucky, it'll work out. If you had a bad economic cycle and you're not at the top of the market, you can be left basically undressed. So safety is a part, prudence is a part of business. You can grow like a maniac, but more goes wrong than right. That's Murphy's Law. The best example I can give you there is I'm driving to Toronto from the airport here. What's the possibility of me getting to Toronto 10 minutes faster? What's the possibility of me taking another half an hour? Yeah. So we want to make sure that now I can speed, I get a ticket, or I blow a tire, whatever it is. So there's some prudence mixed in with what I'm doing. Warren Buffett had a great line. Somebody said, why is it you give all this advice for people to get rich? And he says, well, nobody's patient enough to get rich. When you look at George's story, it's 45 years in the making. It didn't happen overnight. A lot of things had to go right. There was a lot of luck involved. And then George got experience and he got better and made smarter choices, right? If he might have done a couple things that could have gone this way or that way, there is a bit of luck in everything. So we want a consistent flat business. They're worth more. Goodwill premiums. Well, I don't know about you, but this is what I felt like at George's Nursery. I was proud to be there. It was a great feeling. Pretty sure every time his employees show up to work, they feel great. His clients feel great when they come and pick the plants and upsell themselves. And he's also creating a magnet for people to come and visit him. Like, this is so cool, we want to check this out. So I'm really impressed that you guys came, because you saw something super cool. It is inspiring. Quality is never a mistake. It is uncommon. It builds your brand. It qualifies people, excellence or mediocrity, and it commands a premium. Well, I like that formula, right? And so you want to get to a premium saleable. George does that with his business one day. He'll sell it for a ton of money, and his clients pay a premium, and they have excellent service, and it's actually an investment, not an expense. So balance sheet improvements. Pay down debt. George doesn't like debt. We love that. Buy a business using their money. So you can create deals to buy businesses using other people's money. It's kind of cool. You improve your assets and reduce your liabilities. So how do I get rid of my debt and those obligations that I have? Well, upgrading takes time, doesn't happen overnight. Diversify revenue streams. So George has vertically integrated his business. He's got a soil business, he's got a maintenance business, he's got a construction business, he's got a design business. He's got a lot of legs to that stool, right? He got out of the bar business, although I did like his philosophy of working 24 hours a day, capturing every possible billable hour. And so now it's possible. George, get back in the business, create a virtual you, okay? The Musk Robot 7, and he'll be serving drinks all night long without a hangover, and the autopilot will drive him home. So, leverage debt for growth. Well, you can leverage debt for sure. You can also grow without leveraging debt. I'm not against leveraging to grow. I just want to understand the unintended consequences of what I'm doing. And I certainly want to have a plan. What am I doing? What's my focus? Annual audits are great. So I don't know how many people here are bonding. Okay? So that means that you have to have pretty tight financials because they're checking those suckers over every year to be bondable. That means your books are clean. And so you want to have it so that somebody looks at your book and it's clean and they're like, yeah, no problem, I'll bond this person or I'll lend this person money. Neglect this at your peril. So in the expenses or overhead, there are things that are called discretionary expenses. So back in the day, it used to be fixed overhead and variable overhead. We like to use the word discretionary. Do I actually need this? Is it an expense or is it an investment? And is the investment at the right time? Is it too early or too late? So when is as important as the what? So a lot of people screw this up big time. So I just went into a company for 2 days in the US, a little mechanic, and I took a tour of his facility and I said, how much is that? And he said, I don't know, it's $30,000. It was like a 4-wheel drive thing, fun vehicle. And you want to buy a house, right? Yeah, and you need a deposit, right? Well, sell that. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, well, it's going to be a little tougher to make your mortgage payments when you have debt with a piece of equipment that needs repairs, requires fuel, and takes your focus away from what you really should be doing. You can't afford the ATV right now. Give it up. By the way, he wasn't driving in an alley, but it was like some souped-up pickup truck. I don't even know what it cost. And I'm like, do you really need that? And the irony was the guy that introduced me to him, we drove in a 2004 Toyota Camry with leather seats that had split and were cracked, and we show up and he's got this unbelievable vehicle, and the guy I'm with is worth 50 times this guy's value. And I'm like, you got your priorities wrong. You want to grow a business and you're not willing to sacrifice. You've got these toys. I see that. GPS, I crossed that one out for sure. Do I really need this? George has got great culture. There's no issues. And if they stole the truck, he gets an insurance check because he's got great insurance. He's got a great insurance provider. What do I need GPS for, right? Education and training, yes. For what? When? How much? Consulting. Do I need a consultant? Maybe, maybe not. I got a couple of Americans love consultants. I love Americans. Anyway. Do I need equipment? What kind of equipment? Well, George has gone, what's interesting is, how many people do you have working for you, George? Yeah, 50? Okay, so the difference between George's company and other companies is George has 50 people, another company would have 80 people, except he's got more equipment. Got it? So his equipment ratio and what it does for the business, his business is a lot bigger than it looks in terms of the people. And it's fantastic, and he probably can afford to pay his people more because he's so efficient with the equipment. And this can all be tested with numbers. So Marketing. Do I market? When do I market? I see people marketing too early. First, fix your business, then market. Let's find the money in the business before we go bringing in new revenue streams that we can't even handle. We can't even make the estimates for the clients on time. That's a mistake. Sponsorships, charities, headhunters. So Adrian, where are you? Are you still here? Adrian. I headhunted Adrian. I paid a company money to headhunt him. That's my marketing, my human resources marketing, right? So if I want talent, talent's your bottleneck, you better spend some money on it. So an investment or expense, travel, meals, and entertainment. So this is funny. I went into a company around 10 million, Baltimore, and I saw $200,000. They had, by the way, they had entertainment and leisure broken out into 4 accounts, so I had to collate them to see how much money they were spending. I'm like, dude, you realize you're spending 200 grand a year on like meals and entertainment? And like, what are you getting for that? Like, you're giving your guys lunches, all this stuff. Like, yeah, you know, big deal. I said, okay, well, let's look at that. What is that in 10 years? $2 million. You want to build your goodwill and your balance sheet? You might want to clean that up a little bit. A little too generous, a little loose on that. So I thought that was bad. That shocked me. But then I went to a $4 million company. I looked at their financials, and they were spending $250,000 on marketing, on meals and entertainment. And I'm like, well, I don't know what you get for that, but I'm pretty sure it's wasted. And you know, it was insane. It was absolutely insane. And so, you know, this company was doing well until it wasn't. If they would have not spent that money, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have changed their business outcomes, and they would have had another couple of $1 million to weather a downturn in their economic cycle, right? So cash is king. It'll save your ass. And those bottles of booze that you're buying people just go straight to your liver, and there's no residual value. So non-discretionary expenses, okay, you need those. You can't afford, you can't mix, like, I don't even look at that. Don't care. It is what it is. And then there's variable expenses like water bills and phone bills. I really don't care about that. Like, I'm not trying to save $200 a month. That's the last place I'd look. I'm looking for your alcohol tab. That's where I look. Or the other thing, I see a lot of cheating. People are shoving a lot of things through their financials, and I find it immediately. People putting private school, you wouldn't believe their it's just unbelievable. And if I find it, believe me, an auditor is going to find it. That's not going to help your goodwill either. So overspending, one of the types of waste, is one of the most commonplace things I see because people don't know where to invest first. What do I spend the money on first? So return on investment is the most important metric. Which dollar invested today will have the highest average return in the shortest amount of time? So if I spend $1, do I get the dollar back today? I do that every day. If I get it back in the same year, I do it every day. If there's a recurring benefit year after year because I did it, I do that all day long. If my return on investment is 2 years, I consider it. So we bought a business. What's our return on our capital investment for the 2 years? So we bought a business, and in the 3rd year, we will be back to profitability and have paid for all the capital costs. That's a great deal. So if I'm buying a business, I want to see how long is it going to take for this thing to generate enough cash to pay for itself, my original investment. So investments impact your future wealth, and people conflate expenses with investments. They're the same thing, it's just one has a positive value and the other one has a negative value. And you want to test every decision. I like intuition. I also like to test scenarios. So there are numerical scenarios like budgets, if then. There are also pros, cons, and unintended consequences. That's one of my favorite analysis that I like to do on any decision. And I like to formalize it in meetings so that it's not just an ad hoc thing, it's planned. So balance sheet killers, personal lifestyle, property leases. If you can buy a property like George has, his net worth has gone up a ton. Good job, George. Operating leases, if we can avoid those and either finance for the shortest period of time or pay cash and get a negotiated discount and save the interest. Ugly depreciation. I don't want to see the boneyard of junk in your yard. High repairs, we don't like those. The worst I've ever seen was 25% of revenue. I'm just dealing with a company now doing about 14 million, and it's an incredible story. So we have a 5-year fleet rotation schedule. Year 1.5, we're at 2.3 million in profit, and that balance sheet is getting stronger. So it's a lot of fun. We also set up their financial systems with a POS system that ties into their financial system. So that chart of accounts that I have, everything links into that. They press the button at the distribution, and all the numbers come in. So it's a beautiful thing. Lack of systems. Systems are huge investments to make. How do we make this repeatable? Poor management. That's a killer. So the culture of communication. How many of you, how do I ask this without insulting you? How many of you are responsive to your employees and your clients, and your employees are responsive to you and to each other in a very timely manner? Raise your hands. Okay. Those of you that's not the case, don't put up your hands. We need to work on that, because that's part of the culture. If I'm buying your business and no one gets back to me and I don't know what's going on, it's a disaster. So we got to fix that. Wasted inventory. So I'm pretty sure if something happened, I could go through George's yard and I could sell everything there for a premium. They don't have crap lying around. It's impressive. So what are you storing? Lack of passive income. So, I don't know what George does with his money on the side, but I'm sure he's doing some interesting things. I'd like to have some passive income coming in as well. And then a low profit is a killer as well, because that's how you can build your balance sheet. Lawsuits are bad, so I think George might have avoided those with the better clients. Instead, those deals that didn't go through might have just been the best thing ever. So sometimes that's a gift. And do we have this printout by any chance? I guess, Jeremy, do we have this printout? So this is a fun exercise. We don't have to do it now. But if I was going to build my goodwill, what would I do? Thank you. Do you want to hand those out, or hand them out in rows and then you guys can hand them out? So I want to get rich. Slow. Right? How am I going to do that? Well, there's tangible investments. There's spending controls. Whoa, baby, do we need to do that? Do we really need that? And then we got intangible investments. Wow, I didn't even realize that's going to have such a benefit to my business. And I won't go through them all, but this would be a fun thing. Your goal, if you have a perfect business, every one of these boxes is checked off. Fantastic. Great net worth. Love it. Not much more we can do. This is an example of clean business planning. So how many of you here actually have strategic planning meetings with a beautiful agenda that goes through your financials and all the key metrics that you need every year with your team on a prescribed date? Raise your hands. Very few of you. Okay. Guess what? That's completely possible. Some of the companies here, here's a question. How many people here have had me help their businesses? Raise your hands. Okay. That's pretty good. So if we could set this up, we're creating repeatable systems that now perpetuate themselves, and we start to get excellent because we practice, right? So practice is perfection. Repetition allows us to scale. How do we do that? Well, we do this with our business planner. The idea behind this is we have an agenda linked to every single meeting. For smaller businesses, you probably only do 4 different types of meetings. For a larger business like George, shareholders meetings, directors meetings, there's way more meetings. And we want the meetings to be efficient. So I won't dive into what those look like, but this is magic. If you want to get out of your business like I did, I set this up in our business. So I've got Adrian and Sean here. You guys want to stand up for a second? Okay. So, gentlemen, do the systems that we have allow you to run the business without us?
Yes.
There we go. Systems. Not me. It's not about George. Urvari, not quite. It's about the method, right? And these guys are smart enough that they can run with it. It's fantastic. Here's a document that we use to understand business. So, who's your change champion? Who is your designated passionate change champion in your business? Like full on, holy crap, we're going to make the business better. So one of the things that I did in my business was, Peter, thank God my business partner is a beautiful human being. I'd had enough of the day-to-day and the bullshit. I'm like, I am just going to focus on improving the business. That's it. I don't want to hear about a customer. I don't want to hear about an employee. Just make sure you fire them fast if they suck. And I'm going to work on making the business better. And so I became the change champion, the chief Kaizen officer, chief improvement officer. And so, who is that? Sometimes it's somebody external like me, or Peter, or Jeremy, that would come in and make sure those things happen, that we implement the changes. Who's the CEO? Who's the vision and the direction, understanding the future? Who's the finance person? Who's the technology person? Who's the operations person? Who's the human resources person? Who's the creative? Who's the designer that makes our Koivik job so attractive you can't say no? Who's sales and marketing? Notice I have that last, because if you don't have your crap together up here, more sales isn't going to help you. It's going to create that wavy line, and you're going to have more of it. And it's going to be great as long as the cash is coming in faster than it's going out. And you're going to have a bad contract, you're not going to get paid, and it's going to go to hell. That's what happens. So then we have Kaizen, which is continual improvement, and then we have growth. Now I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to go from 2 crews to 4 crews. How do I do that? We like to buy businesses. So Sean and Adrian have been integral in integrating one of the businesses that we bought. Once we sort this out, we'll do it again, and our business will start to grow very rapidly, much faster than trying to do it 1 employee at a time. Because when I buy a business, I can strip out the bad, keep the good, and I already have a customer base. I can raise the prices, I can introduce our brand, and all of a sudden we grow a lot faster. So our next growth evolution is mergers and acquisitions for sure. And then we have, okay, that's the people. Like, if I don't have these people and they're like, they're amazing at this. On the other side, it's like, what am I doing next? So for example, this company that I went into, about 13, 14 million revenue, they didn't have a boardroom to do planning. I couldn't sit down and go on a whiteboard and sketch out ideas, and they didn't have a big screen TV to it was a disaster. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna spend $35,000, I put $100 in there, and you're gonna do a boardroom. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna sort out your parking situation, because it's a disaster. So I wanna have signs, I wanna have spots, I want everybody backed in, I want this tight, and this is the symbol for the rest of the business, how we're gonna improve. And they have multiple properties. It's ugly. We're going to get that little corner, and we're going to work our way out of the corner, just like you would build a landscape, work out of the corner. It's how we fix businesses. We got to find out what's going on. Oftentimes, we're going to do a bit of this and a bit of that to get it to a certain level, because it's like we're disaster stage, and then we'll circle back and dial it in. So you can use this to measure and track what is it that I'm focused on to get my business to be another level, and how much money am I going to spend to do it, and can I afford it? So my favorite analogy for a team is this. I love Batman, okay? So Batman goes in there, and you see the pow, the boom, and he gets himself in trouble. And then Robin bails him out, right? Now, next level is when he's got a Catwoman. He's got Catwoman, and he's got Robin, and he's got the butler in the background, right? I want to be the butler. Okay, so, and your company get to a stage where you actually don't need me, and you have your own butler built into your business. I got 4 legs of the stool, the 5 pillars. The technology is what connects it all together. Clean, sweet business. And we got to get there, and it's going to take time. What are you going to do to make the changes? So, I just blew this up in a clean kind of way to show you what this looks like. Growth is the last thing that we're going to look at. Just get that out of your heads. Get better. Get better, grow your bottom line. So, closing, how do we work? How do we work? How do we help businesses? So, I've had the fortune of starting on the shovel, doing every single role in the business, sucking at some, being great at others, learning from others, building teams, creating processes that actually work in my business. So how well does our business run? Pretty smooth, better every day. So we got the pessimist and the optimist. I got that combo down. All right? And so processes with leadership and direction get you where you want to go. So together with you and your team, we become your chief implementation officer, whether it's your financials, whether it's your operations, whether it's your asset management, whether it's your fleet rotation, whatever it is, we're going to figure out what needs to be done and in what order, and we'll knock that off. Boom, 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 boom. We have some really cool tools to do that. So some of you, how many people have done a KTC SWOT? How helpful is that? Okay. So we have a plan, very useful. I think we did one with Koivik as well. Kind of fun to see, there's like 121 things we've identified in all the different categories: leadership, general business knowledge, continual improvement, ethos, which is the 5 pillars of business, and last but not least, growth. And we'll go through that and see where are we ready. 3 minutes left, thumbs up. So, we're hands-on in person. We're not virtual, we're not part of some program. We're your employee, and we're gonna get you where you wanna go. And when you're done with us, we get thrown to the side of the road. And if you need us again, you'll pick us up, and we'll do some more work with you. It's a fun way to go, and it's really fast. So we also have our 911 advisory. So some of you here who have hired me for consulting have leveraged the crap out of that. Hey, Tyler? So Tyler will call me up and he's got a problem and I'll respond within 24 hours. Cudmores, did you guys have an estimate you needed done? You want to check? You're a little nervous? Kind of a big number? Yes? Raise your hands up. So what about, who else? Elements, you guys are in here somewhere? Little 911 help last week? Comforting? Terrifying, big job, right? Goes south, I've seen a lot of things. I've estimated billions of dollars worth of work, and I've seen a lot of things, so I can help that way as well. So can Peter. So we've got this service that we use. If you need it, call us and we'll give you help. So how is this going to work? If you want to try us out, it's $500 for 3 hours. And it'll be virtual. I'd love it if you take the time. I highly recommend it. You come and physically visit us at our yard and operations. And then you'll walk away with an understanding of what consulting looks like. And then you're going to make a choice to proceed or not to proceed. And it'll help change your business. Here's a QR code. If you'd like to sign up for the $500 offer that we have, you can see Jeremy at the back behind that little smart growth thing. And we will actually book the appointment with you now because that's sales. Don't wait for another day. And we can make a huge difference in your business. And does anybody here who hired me regret hiring me? No. Okay. You're not letting in the room. Somebody will agree. No, this was not a fixed question. I was vulnerable with you guys, okay? I'm showing the vulnerability. The truth of the matter is I do make mistakes. If I do, I'll fix it and I'll admit it immediately. The last thing I want to do is waste your money, and I, with you, will make very, very sober decisions about spending your money. And that's it. Thank you.